Hey guys, so I'm going to be reviewing the Black Ops 6 Beta. I'm considering this a casual review, mainly because I'm not much of a competitive player. I'm kind of easily satisfied, you know, and a lot of people, especially in Call of Duty, they refer to the casual audience, and a lot of people like to make excuses on why X and Y bad things in the games are because it appeases the casuals or whatever. And I feel like I would consider myself a very casual player. Obviously, everyone's different, but I feel like maybe as a casual player, I can give my own opinion on the beta, maybe on certain themes that people talk about that are oriented for casuals. Also, I feel like a lot of reviews are very either overly negative or very vague. Like, I'm not here to put down a game or, well, I mean, if I really like a game, maybe, yeah, I'll, like, glaze it. But if not, like, I'm not gonna be, like, crazy. Like, if I don't like a game, I'm not gonna play it. Like, I'm here to tell you, I mean, I'm here making a review of something that I liked, of something that I played. I'm not gonna play a bunch of hours on something and then make a review and tell you that it's bad. I'm just gonna tell you that it's bad and that's it. I'm not gonna review it. And I feel like a lot of people do the thing where they review a game and then they just completely crap on it, just constantly saying bad things. Especially recent games and a lot of games, or not even games, just almost any media general. People make a review and they'll just be really negative. And I feel like sometimes it's more so to feed into the algorithm. And I feel like going into anything, almost anything modern, you can just expect someone to say just negative things when like the majority of people might be like, okay, it's not the best, but it's definitely not something bad. And I feel like as a casual, like enjoyer of stuff, I know that sounds cringe, but as a casual, like I'm not really crazy about being negative. Like if I don't like something, I'll say it, but that's kind of it. Like I'm not gonna sit here and whine. So I kind of wanted to make casual reviews of games or anything I enjoyed. But onto the beta. Um, it is a beta, so a lot of issues are expected. Most of the issues are probably, bugs, obviously. However, there are certain things that I'm not really sure if they're already part of the game or we can like expect them to change. For example, the Omni movement. I think it was fun, but like a lot of people have noticed that when you do the dive, it's very difficult to see prone players after they dived, and you end up struggling to get kills on them. They'll see you first before you see them. But overall, I didn't really come across a lot of issues, at least any bugs. I didn't. I actually didn't come across a lot of hackers too. Apparently, some people were coming across hackers. I didn't. But as for a beta, I didn't experience a lot of issues. Now, getting onto the Omni movement, as I mentioned, the dive is a bit problematic. I think I only played the beta for 10 hours, and in those 10 hours, I have shot more dead bodies than I've shot ever in my near decade of playing COD. Like, I just cannot differentiate between a dead body and a prone player after diving. It's so hard, especially at a distance. It's almost impossible to tell, and I feel like it's also part of the like style of the game, the way it looks, that makes it difficult. I'm not really sure how they could change it to like make player visibility better, but it is a bit of an issue. Apart from that, Omni Movement was really fun. I do think, I mean, I'm pretty sure maybe it's pretty obvious to a lot of people, but I think they did like decrease the gravity for Omni Movement. Like it's a lot easier to lock into people who are diving or jumping or whatever. Well, not jumping, but diving. Not like that's a bad thing. Just that I do think that's something they did. Omni Movement is really fun. I think it's a really interesting mechanic and it's really fresh. It's really refreshing to use it. I do think they need to adjust it a little, as I said with a dive, but also I've seen some people do some crazy stuff with Omni Movement. Like you would almost say they're hacking, but it's just they're just cracked out of their minds, and it's crazy. Like I just don't even know what's going on. That being said, I do think that's more of a getting used to thing than like, oh, that's an issue. But Omni Moon was really fun. I'm glad it's put in the game. Now the body shield mechanic, I actually really liked as well. I think it was also great, especially the fact that you could interact with the player, you could talk to them. I didn't actually do that, but I think that's just great. Like there's been a bunch of really fun content that people have made for it. But on top of that, as a game aspect, gameplay, it's definitely really good. It's not OP because it's not like you can't shoot the person behind the body. And on top of that, well, the person with the body can't really use the gun to its best aspect. You know, you're kind of in hip fire and your movement is slower. On top of that, there's a bit of an animation when picking up the body. So you can't just be picking people left and right. So I think it's fairly balanced and it's fun. I think it's a really good mechanic. Another thing that I think a lot of people are really gonna like, or I'm pretty sure people have been liking, I haven't really seen anything about it, but it's the ragdoll on death. I think they called it like dynamic camera or something. When you die, you just go flying. Like you just ragdoll. And I think that's amazing. I think a lot of people have always really been into that kind of stuff. I'm not really crazy about it, but you know, it's fun. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Now, onto the maps. These were more medium, I think, and small maps, which I don't mind. Skyline. Apparently a lot of people didn't like Skyline. Personally, I thought it was fine. The only issue was really like the area near the pool. There's just too much open space. I think if you're by that area, you're gonna get killed. There's not really a lot of cover. The pool isn't really much of a good cover. Apart from that, everything else is really good. I don't really have any issues with it. Something that I did find out that I'm not sure if that's been in Call of Duty. I've never tried it, but if you go in the water, in the pool, and you throw a grenade underwater, it'll actually have like a sort of underwater mechanic where it won't get thrown out of the water. It'll like go up a little and then start like slowly sinking down, which is, I don't know, maybe that's been in Call of Duty, but I never noticed it, which I thought was interesting. Now as for rewinds, rewind was sort of like market. I'm not really sure how to feel about it. It felt kind of wonky, I'd say. Like there was a lot of open space, but at the same time it didn't feel like there was open space, mainly because there was like obstacles like cars or like the hedges. So you couldn't really fight in long range combat, and if you were, it was just mainly like certain areas. And people didn't really go in the more open area. They just kind of stuck to the market. It was also very clustered inside, which I didn't really like. I think the only other area that wasn't as clustered was the side where the trucks were, like the back of the markets. But again, not a lot of people went there. So it was kind of a weird map. Not sure how to feel about it. It's kind of whatever. Then there was Scud. I actually really like Scud. There's like a good balance between closed areas and the open areas. There's like the trenches, which is the mainly open area. Generally, if you're there, you're probably going to be fighting a sniper who's on the satellite dish or whatever it is. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like it's a little hard finding them, or at least I kind of struggle to do so. But apart from that, there were a few little areas, especially in like Domination. The areas where you had to go, they were like the main fighting areas anyways, like even if you're not playing Domination. And like even those areas, they were kind of compact, but at the same time it still gave room to actually like fight each other. So it wasn't a bad map. I actually kind of liked it. Nothing that I would say is outstanding, but it was okay. Then there was Babylon. Babylon was one of the smaller maps, and I don't know, I think this one's interesting. A lot of people say they don't like it. Personally, I was so-and-so about it. I think it's a decent map when it comes to just going crazy. The right side, or, well, I guess it depends where you spawn, but there was one side that's way too clustered. It's not crazy, because again, it's a small map, but there was a lot of, like, pillars and stuff, but not a lot of people went there. They only use it to, like, move onto the middle area, which is where the main fighting was. And then there was the open area as well, where I think most of the, like, long-range combat happens. And it's pretty hectic, but I think that's kind of the point of small maps. They're supposed to be crazy. There's supposed to be a lot of action. I do think it is a little boring, I'd say. I'm not really into the whole like desert stuff, desert like maps, or like, like the kind of yellowish hues. But for what it's supposed to be doing, I think it does its job. Now, as for Derelict, I actually liked Derelict. Maybe it's because of the greens. There's a lot of green in the map. There's a few colors. Well, it's mainly green, but I actually like that. I do think it's a little clustered at times, but overall, there are enough areas to fight where it feels like there's a certain smoothness to it, or certain flow to it. It was actually a good map in my opinion. There was like 2 sniping spots that I saw people use, and they were like crazy sniping spots, like you could actually fight back. And I actually liked the map. I actually thought it was good, which is, I'm pretty sure this was also another map that some people weren't particularly crazy about. And then there was Stakeout, which I think was one of the maps used for gunfights. I actually didn't get this map a lot. From the looks of it, from the little I played, it was very small, or at least it felt very small, and it was kind of clustered. I didn't really like it. I feel like it was made specifically for like kind of like gunfight, 2v2, 1v1, like a very, very small situation. Which again, I didn't really like it too much. I felt like it was, especially for like gunfight, it was too fast, too small, too fast for the game. Especially like it's small, and on top of that, we have omni movement, so it kind of makes it difficult to appreciate the map. But on top of that, well, it is small. I didn't really like it. Then there was Gala. Now, Gala is another one of those maps where it was very hectic. I think there's it's this weird thing where I felt like there was a lot of open space as well, but there was a lot of blocking, like sites across the map. However, it still flowed in a very like crazy manner. There was still a lot of like long range gunfights, and despite how crazy it was, I also liked it. I think it's one of the main maps, well, maybe all of them at a certain extent, but this one you could kind of see the whole like 3-lane method, and it kind of worked out for it. I'm not crazy about it, but it was an okay map. And then the last map was the pit. I like the idea of the pit. I like the way it looks, the cave. However, I didn't like how it played. I think it was just, whenever I played it, it was just too crazy. There was just too much going on. It was just annoying. Like, there's just way too little space at times. It's just crazy. Like, the other ones that were crazy, I felt like there was enough, like, breathing room. But for the pit, no. Like, it was just not enough room. And again, all of these maps get crazier with the fact that there's omni movement. So, it was just insane. I didn't really like it just because of that reason. That there was just too much going on and too many corners. In my opinion, it wasn't exactly the best designed map. Now, onto the, like, I wouldn't say new, but I guess individual modes or unique modes for the beta. We had a kill order, which I think is one of the new modes, which is the game mode where we had HVT, or the high value target. I think the concept for the game mode is good, but the execution is kind of flimsy, mainly because I feel like having the HVT have like a bunch of armor is kind of a bad idea, because unless they're like rushing you, it's gonna be kind of hard to kill them. I've had a few games where they would just hide in a corner and people would just protect them, and it'd be so hard to get to them. And it's like, obviously they have a limited amount of plates, but on top of that you can revive them, and there's a little delay between them going down and you being able to hit them when they're down. So you're most likely going to be killed if you're close to them when you down them. So like, there's a lot of issues with it. Again, as a concept, it's fun, but actually playing it can be a little frustrating. The other one wasn't really a new mode, but we had face-off, which was no score streaks. And well, it was just a game without score streaks. However, I think this was the one where they had some of the small maps, like Gala and Pit. And I mean, the maps are basically designed around it. Gala had like the roof on it. The Pit was one with Pit. It was in a cave. But again, the way the maps are designed kind of makes up for the fact that there's no score streaks. I mean, there's just chaos all the time. Now on to the score streaks. They introduced Scout Pulse, which from what I understand, it's like a personal UAV almost, but it's weaker in a way. I didn't really understand, but I guess that's the idea behind it. Well, I mean, you know, it is kind of what it is. Like, you know, it's a Scout Pulse. That's kind of it. And there's the RCXD. It's returning score streak. I don't really like using it, mainly because the like maneuvering, controlling the RCXD is so difficult for me. I hate the controls. That's the only thing about it. Then there's the UAV, which is, you know, it's the UAV. We have it in every game. And the counter UAV again. Then there was the Watchdog Hilo. I'll be honest, I never really got past the counter UAV. I never really, like, I'm not really one to use more of the other, like, killing score streaks. I prefer to just, like, level up my guns than using score streaks. So I didn't really use any of the other ones. But the Watchdog is basically just, you know, it's a returning score streak. It, like, follows you around, gets kills. Hellstorm, returning score streak. Interceptors, pretty sure this is also a returning one. I think this is the only one I've used apart from the other ones to, like, shoot down anything if there's anything crazy. Just like the chopper gunner. Again, didn't use the chopper gunner. I don't really use a lot of these score streaks, but you know, a lot of them are returning. Something new they introduced, I mean, for the lethals, was the blast trap. I mean, it was basically just like a trap device, except it was more, I guess, open, you know, like with the bouncing betties, if you ducked, you were fine. Claymores, you know, you could kind of see where they were, you could avoid them, and it was only, they would only explode if you were in a certain direction of it. You know, certain specific traps like that, there was like sort of avoiding it. But the blast trap, from what I saw, I mean, you never really saw it. I feel like I never really saw a lot of people use it, but it does feel like a less avoidable trap, which I don't really have a problem with. Maybe because, again, I didn't really come across a lot of them. Then for the tacticals, we had the proxy alarm, and I actually like the proxy alarm. Thought it was very useful. I didn't really use it a lot, but when I did, I thought it was useful. It gives you a really good warning, and well, obviously you can see where the enemy is if they get near the alarm. So I think it's a useful tactical. Down to the field upgrades, we had the assault pack, which I'm pretty sure it was just, you know, the ammo pack. Apparently said, I'm not sure if they were talking about this one, but I don't know if they said that it was supposed to be like a combination of other, like, sort of packs or something. Maybe I'm getting confused with another one, but you know, it was just your ammo pack. Then there's a trophy system, and that's the main one I use, the trophy system. There's nothing new. And then there's the neurogas. I think this one was interesting. When I first saw they were talking about the neurogas, I thought it was going to be kind of like, because they said you would see like hallucinations, and in game I'm pretty sure the hallucinations were just you seeing kind of like hazy, which was kind of boring. Like, whatever, you know, because I kind of thought it would be a little bit like when you go into like out of the zone in like blackout and you would start seeing like numbers and stuff. I thought they would try to incorporate something like that, like something actually crazy with the hallucinations, but it wasn't bad. Then we have the acoustic AMP, just lets you hear footsteps better, I think. I don't know if there's anything else with it. I didn't really use it. And then there's the sleeper agent. The sleeper agent is the newest one, and it's kind of been making waves because a lot of people think that it's kind of like, it's a game breaker because it apparently like lets you like look like an ally somehow. I'm not really sure how that works. I don't know if it gives you like the little symbols on top of your head that you're like, you know, like the little dot with the name. A lot of people said that it kind of ruins the flow of the game, which I don't know if I agree with. I don't know exactly if there's like a way to tell if someone's not on your team, but I don't think it's that crazy. The average COD player will kind of shoot first, ask questions later. I think whenever I used it, I always got immediately killed, so I don't think it's that game breaking. Which again, like even I do it, like people will shoot their own teammates all the time. So I don't think it's like that bad. You know, people made it out like, oh my god, it's gonna break the game. It's like, how are we supposed to tell that they're on our side? I mean, they're not on our side. You know, what if you're going for a high streak like a nuke? It'll break the like streak. I don't really think so. A lot of people are crazy. They're gonna get through it. Then they added the combat specialties. They're kind of just a small buff. I wasn't really too crazy about them, which a small buff is always nice. But I feel like sometimes the actual perks themselves are more useful in a certain class than getting all the same color for the buff. But for the red ones, you would get temporary buff to movement speed and health regeneration rate, which I guess if you're like, the red ones were kind of offensive abilities, so I guess I can see if someone's like a really aggressive player, they would want that. I never really used it. Recon, enemies can be seen through walls for a short time after respawn, which it can be useful, especially in smaller maps, but it's only for a limited time. A HUD edge indicator flashes when an enemy's outside your view, which used to be a perk. I think it was an MW2. I can't remember, or maybe it was yeah, I think it was in Warzone. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's very useful. And then leave no death skulls when killing enemies, which used to be like an attachment, but now it's just part of that. I think the recon is probably the most useful buff compared to the other two. It's definitely the one I kept going for, and it's for the blue perks. And then strategist, the green one, earning score bonus for objectives and destroying enemy content. See enemy content through walls a short distance. Deploy equipment and field upgrades faster. Again, it's kind of another small buff. I didn't really use this one a lot, but again, it just, from the looks of it, it's just really small. Then we only had 3 wild cards in the beta, which was Overkill, Perk, Greed, and Gunfighter. I don't really use Overkill, to be honest. I don't really use primary weapons. Kind of like using my pistol. Perk Greed, I didn't really see the use of it. I feel like there are just certain really good perks, and then the rest of them are kind of like whatever. I don't really care. The main one that I used, the one that I liked the most, was Gunfighter, which was that you get 3 extra points for your guns for the attachments. That's the one that's the main one I used. When I unlocked it, I don't think I ever used the other ones again. Onto the guns themselves. We had a very low amount of guns in the beta. I don't know if the actual, we only got to level 30 in the beta. I don't know if the actual unlocks for up to level 30 are accurate to what they're going to be in game, because I kind of felt like it was a very low amount of weapons, or maybe I'm crazy, but I do feel like it was a little low. There were a few like dry spells of weapons, especially from level 20 to 30. I think it was only like 2 new weapons, and it felt like it took a while to get through it. Not really get too against it, but I'm not sure if they're going to change that on release. But we had the XM4, which was a returning gun, AK-74, returning gun, and the MES, I don't know if you could just say AIMS 85, which I think is a new weapon. The Jackal PDW, Tanto 22, I think is also a new weapon. SPD, LR 7.62, SWAT 556, DM 10, which I think might be also a new weapon. Marine SP, which is just your, pump action shotgun. XMG, Sigma 2B launcher, GS45 pistol, 9mm PM pistol, and the combat knife. I think one of my favorite changes to BO6 was having the combat knife as part of your arsenal, but you just have to actually pull it out. Like, I actually like this change. I hated having to sacrifice a secondary to have the knife. It was just annoying. Felt like a lot of times you either had to have the knife pulled out and just with the intention of using it throughout the match. If you actually wanted to get kills with it, I feel like in the moment, if you're in the middle of a gunfight and you have to pull it out, you're more likely not going to win the fight. So I actually like having the combat knife in the class already, just as a separate weapon. However, I didn't try this out with a lot of weapons, but I did notice that for some weapons, gun butting took ages. Like, you hit them once, and it took so long to hit them the second time. Which again, I don't know if that's for every weapon, maybe just the big ones. But it almost felt like it wasn't even worth it, gun butting the guns. I don't know if that's to combat the fact that you can now pull out the knife. To be fair, I do think in the previous games, gun butting was just way too fast. Like, you could just go around going crazy with it. I do think it was a good idea to increase the amount of time between gun butts, but it was just, they increased it way too much for the beta. Again, a little bit of space between them is good, but they have too much space. Now, I didn't actually get to spend a lot of time using the different weapons. I just kind of used them for my like initial thoughts. And then I just focused on getting the XM4 to the max level just to like see the progression and check out the attachments. I didn't actually max it out. I didn't play enough for it, but I got pretty far. Well, the XM4 obviously is your balanced weapon. It's kind of good for everything, not great at anything. I can't actually particularly remember using the AK-74. I mean, it was alright, I guess. The AMES, I actually originally thought it was gonna be like a meta weapon or something, because I felt like it had a good fire rate and good damage for the recoil it had, and I just thought it was overall pretty good. That being said, I feel like I actually didn't see quite enough people using it, but it was a solid weapon. The C9 had pretty low recoil. However, I'm not sure if it was me, but it felt like it took way too long to kill people for some reason. Like, it just felt kind of weak. I'm not sure why, but it was, you know, decent gun. The Jackal, I didn't really use it that much initially. Apparently people were saying it was like a meta weapon. People were going crazy with it, which I did encounter a few times myself. Apparently they nerfed it for the second weekend, and the second weekend was kind of when I started to use it, so I didn't really get a crazy impression of it. It was just, you know, an SMG. The Tanto 22, it was really slow in my opinion. I actually didn't really like it. I know a lot of people aren't really crazy about the slower weapons, the slower shooting weapons. Personally, they're kind of like a guilty pleasure of mine using them. Like, I don't know why. It's just kind of fun actually using the slow shooting weapons. That being said, because of how fast paced the game was, it wasn't exactly a good weapon to use. I think if I went far enough to unlock, I forgot what it was called, but the attachment to increase your rate of fire, maybe I could have gotten a better chance with the weapon. But for what it is, it wasn't that good for such a fast-paced game. The SVD is kind of your semi-auto sniper. But for a semi-auto, I don't know if it was just me, but I felt like it was a little too strong for a semi-auto sniper. Like, it felt like it was getting a lot of one-shots, which isn't a problem, but I just thought it was interesting. It wasn't a bad weapon, you know, it's a sniper. Honestly, I'm a sniper fan, so I think most snipers aren't really gonna be bad for me. The LR is the bolt action, and what's a bolt action? Nothing really too crazy to say. I've always been a fan of bolt actions. I just like the way, you know, they use the bolt action. Now, as for the SWAT 556, I wasn't a big fan of it. I feel like it had potential. Like, I think with the right attachments, it could be a good weapon, like a really good. But I'm not a fan of the burst weapons. And then this one just felt kind of odd. I don't know how to explain it, but I didn't really like it. But again, I do feel like it could be a good weapon. As for the DM10, and I actually also didn't really like it. I don't know if it was just me, but it felt kind of slow. And not because it was a single shot. Like, I just felt like other weapons were just better. It also might be because maybe it's just me, but since I play mouse and keyboard, it's a lot harder for me to be tracking enemies, especially with Omni movements, while clicking quickly compared to just, you know, holding down and just tracking. I don't know if it's just me, but I found it kind of hard to use. But it is a longer range weapon, so it might have been an issue because I was playing in more smaller maps. And the Marine SP is, well, you know, it's pump action shotgun. I don't really think there's anything to be said that's special about it. I mean, it's a shotgun. It is what it is. The XMG, only LMG, I think it's supposed to be like a variation of the XM4 because they kind of look the same. And I mean, I don't know. I didn't really use that one too much, but it was kind of whatever. It wasn't outstanding. Didn't really like stand out in any way. And Sigma 2B was the only launcher there was in the game, or at least in the beta. It was your lock-on launcher, the one used for destroying score streaks. So, you know, kind of is what it is. Maybe it's just me, but I couldn't really tell the difference between the two pistols. They just kind of felt the same. I don't really have anything outstanding to say about them. You know, they're just kind of pistols. That was kind of it for the weapons. Now for the gunsmith, I think this was one of the things that had the most change in the game. I'll say I really like the new gunsmith. In my opinion, I think it's the most solid form of gunsmith we've had. I've always been a fan of the gunsmith. A lot of people wanted to go back to like the Pick 10 Personally, I didn't want to go back. I love the gunsmith. I love messing around with my weapons, doing crazy builds, or just focusing on certain stats. I really liked it. I know a lot of people complain that it makes every weapon feel the same, but like, let's face it. Like, if it feels the same, it's because you kind of made it feel the same. Like, you kind of have a choice with it, and a lot of people probably won't care. They're probably just gonna use the exact same weapon, whatever is the meta or anything. I feel like it'll be pretty rare to see people who actually experiment with weapons, but that's kind of because they want to. Like me, for instance, I kind of like messing around with the stats, but I actually like how they actually made general attachments for this weapon. I mean, for this gunsmith, where you kind of had the exact same attachments for all the weapons, essentially. Every attachment was more specific for certain stats. And I actually think this is a lot better, especially because of the naming system. Like, it's just balanced stocks or whatever, heavy, light, stuff like that. I prefer the naming system over the older one, just because, like, for example, Modern Warfare 3, there was so many attachments. Most of them probably did like the exact same thing. It was just like 1% difference. I didn't care about remembering the names. I don't remember the names for them. I remember probably like Bruin for some of them. That's kind of it. It was just annoying to get through. Way too many attachments. And it kind of made every new weapon was kind of getting like a lower amount of levels because, like, how many more attachments can you add to the game? I like that system where you could share attachments, but I felt like it was more of a short-term fun thing to do rather than a long-term. Like, long-term, it was just a disaster. So I actually like the way they're doing it for BO6 with the generalized attachments. I think it's a lot better, a lot more organized, a lot funner. So I actually think it's pretty solid. Now the sights, I also actually really liked. That's another thing I hated about Modern Warfare 3. There were so many sights that were basically exactly the same. No difference at all. And I like that you could just start off with a sight on your weapon. That's another thing I hated, was waiting to unlock the sights. Because a lot of the iron sights are good, but overall, I just prefer the red dots or any of the sights over the iron sights. And it was nice already having it unlocked. I'm not too crazy about it sharing sights with the weapon class. I think it's just, just a quirk of the game. Doesn't really, I think it's kind of neutral. I don't think there's anything wrong with it or anything positive. There's not really that much variety between weapon classes, so it's kind of whatever. Overall, I had fun with the beta. Just your average yearly COD, in my opinion. Which I know a lot of people mock, COD players for that, but it was fun, and especially with the new additions like Omni Movement. I think it's a fresh feeling. I'm not really much of a multiplayer guy. As I said, I'm not very competitive. I'm more interested to see what'll they do for zombies. Well, zombies is its own can of worms. People have been going crazy about it. I know this is about the beta only, and because I don't really know if I'm gonna make a video on zombies, zombie stuff. I might, but I don't really know. I just think people are overreacting with the current zombie content. But anyways, I enjoyed the beta. I didn't have a lot of issues. The only real issue I had was with the dive for Omni Movement. Everything else was fine. The maps were kind of whatever, in my opinion. Not too crazy about them. Everything else just kind of unique to the game, but that's really it. Nothing too outstanding. Apart from the gunsmith, which I liked. I thought the gunsmith was great. Overall, I'm excited for Black Ops 6. I want to see more. I'm not going to give a rating for my reviews. I'm not really good with ratings. I don't really know how to give an actual rating that's interpreting how I feel. Personally, I just want to say, like, I thought it was fun, or I'm really impressed, or it wasn't fun, or it was meh, or I hated it. Which, again, if I hate something, I'm probably not going to make a review on it. If I didn't like it, I probably will, just because, like, maybe it's something where I spend a lot of time on it. I feel like this was just really good. Again, mainly because I'm not a multiplayer guy. I feel like with multiplayer, I'm not really going to be impressed, especially since it's a beta. It's very limited, but overall, I liked it. Can't wait for COD to release. And I know people are being very pessimistic, very negative, but personally, I'm very optimistic about this. Can't wait for October 25th, I think, and I had fun. Thank you for watching.